Okay, again, I'm not going to show you all the tools, but there's some tools that I do think you need to know. If you run into an issue where you have deleted some polygons by accident, or maybe you weren't paying attention and you need to fill those holes, you can go into Fill Hole tool. So Mesh, Fill Hole, right? Click on it, and it should fill the hole up. Let's go ahead and see if I can do that with the edge. Go ahead and select the edge, and let's do that again. Fill hole. There we go. So that's how simple it can be. Okay, so but what if your edge is wonky? I'm not sure if this will work, but if I click on that vertex, click on that vertex, and the hole is not in one, aligned in one axis, and this is way down there like that, that could cause a problem for the Fill Hole tool. Let's go ahead and double click on the edge. So the Fill Hole tool works best if you select an edge, select all the adjacent edges, and go into Mesh, Fill Hole. Now it did work, so that's great. What if you can't get the Fill Hole to work, or if you don't want to use the Fill Hole, or if you forgot? There's also the Append to Polygon tool. I'm going to go to Selection Mode, and I'm going to go into Mesh Tools and Append to Polygon tool. I'm going to go in here, and let's go ahead and reset settings. Alright, so when I click on it, just click on an edge, and just follow along the arrows. So the arrow's telling me to go this way and then go this way, so I have to click on that edge. I go on the adjacent edge. You can skip edges, but you don't have to. And then you click on that one. So I can go back with the backspace key. Okay, I can go from here to here. Sometimes that won't work. Sometimes you have some really bad geometry and it just won't work at all. So if that doesn't work, right? So if I go in there and if I hit the G key, and I probably won't do it again because I did Control Z. If I go back into my Mesh Tools and go into Append to Polygon tool and do the same thing again, and I hit Enter, then it fixes it. But what if it doesn't work? What other possibility do I have? So the Fill Hole doesn't work, the Append to Polygon tool doesn't work. You'll face this problem sometime. So you can force it. You can manually fill the hole by selecting the edge and doing a Control E, moving it just a little bit, right clicking on it, go to Vertex, and hold the Shift key down, right mouse button, and go into, well, that's not what I wanted. Hold the Shift key, right mouse button, go into Target Weld, and then select that one, and then keep the left mouse button held down, and then move over to the next one, and it'll actually weld those two together, and that will also fill the hole. Okay. So those are great tools, and you can use the tools in multiple ways, like I just showed you. Okay, I just showed you 3 tools that will do the same thing. Okay, 3 different tools that will do the same thing. Just got to know how to use them creatively. Okay, next thing, what else do we need here? Let's take a look. Again, I'm not going to show you every single thing, but I'm going to show you things that you're going to use. A Triangulate tool you might use. Usually I use this I triangulate low poly objects. I always duplicate the low poly object that's all quads, duplicate it to save it, and then I will take the duplicate and triangulate it, and that usually helps with baking. So if you have issues with baking, that's because you probably need to triangulate the low poly. Now if you triangulate the low poly, it won't have any issues with the UVs, meaning it will not destroy the UVs if you do that. Okay. Now what could destroy the UVs, though, if you have a low poly and then you smooth it, that could destroy the UVs, and you'd have to re-UV everything. Okay, just remember that. Right, mirror tool we've already used. You guys know how to use that. The biggest thing with the mirror tool is make sure that your object's in the center, meaning that just to use it efficiently, your vertices need to be in the center. Okay, and you need to be facing the right direction. Right now I'm not facing the right direction. I deleted the wrong side. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter which side you're on. So let's say I usually like to mirror over this way. It's a little easier. Okay. Alright, so if I go in here and use the mirror tool, you guys know how it works. Just make sure that you are this is centered. Now the problem with this is, let's go back into object mode here a minute, that pivot point has to be there. If it's not, you probably want to put it on the snap tool and snap it in there, right? You can hold the D key and snap the pivot point. Okay, so it needs to be in the center of where you want to mirror it over. And the mirror tool works out pretty good, pretty slick. They fixed it all. It used to be horrible. Mirror tool, bring that in there, and XYZ, X, negative, mirror, bingo. Alright, so it's supposed to select, it's supposed to, like, yep, it did it. It's supposed to weld all the vertices that are connected together, and that worked out pretty good. It's the mirror tool you're going to use a lot, just got to know how to use it. Another thing to remember is that when you extrude things, if you extrude things, it causes faceting. Now normally when you create a primitive, the primitive is smooth. So let me show you. So the primitive usually comes in smooth, even if you have a cylinder, right? Alright, so faceting is when you can see the lines. Okay, right now Maya smooth shades these objects for you. It's at an angle of 30 degrees. So anything that's more than 30 degrees will be shaded perfectly. So it looks smooth, right? Watch what happens though when I take this edge and I select everything. And I go to Mesh Display and I go to Harden Edge. Okay. Some instances you do want to show hardened edges, but it normally is not something you want to do. Okay, and you can do the same thing with this guy right here. So what happens when you extrude, you get some of that. It doesn't know that you want to smooth between each one of those edges at 30 degrees. It just has no idea. So it doesn't do it. So you have what's called faceting, and you'll need to go in there and smooth your objects, or smooth, soften the edge. So you can see this is also not very, something that you want to do. Okay, so if you get this, and usually you'll get this if you bring in an object from another program as an OBJ, or you send your stuff out and you bring it back in and it's got hard edges. All you have to do is select it, select all the faces, or excuse me, all the edges, use edges, and go to Mesh Display and soften edge, and it will solve the problem. Okay. Now if you go in here and do the same thing with this, it will happen, but not all edges need to be softened, right? So let me show you what happens. So with the Mesh Display, you click on Soften Edge. Look what happens. We have a preview issue problem. So if you try to soften a 90-degree angle, which is what this is right here, 90 degrees, boom. So what happens? Let's stop a minute. What happens is that it gives you an error. It's a rendering error that happens in your preview window. It's kind of hard to fix unless you do this. So let's double click on that and double click on the bottom here. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. I'm going to hold the shift key down. And then if we harden these edges, then it will be fine. So let's go ahead and harden edge. Bingo. So if you get that kind of weird shading, it's probably because you accidentally softened all the edges. Okay? With a sphere, that's okay, right? But if you have a 90-degree angle, it's going to have a problem with that. It just doesn't know how to smooth it. There's not enough information for it to smooth. So that's a problem. What else? Let's look at this. So there's your reverse. Okay, so let's say your object turns black, or in some instances it might. So I have to actually go in here and do it. So if you get something that looks like this, there's a couple things that could be wrong that you can problem solve. So it's reverse normals, like what this is. And if that's the case, you can just go in there and select the faces. Okay. And then go into Mesh Display and reverse. Okay, cool. and you're good to go. Could be something something really bad happening here, and hopefully that's not the case. But you notice that also reversing faces and messing around with faces causes hard edges. Yeah, so again, I've got to go in there to mesh display and soften the edge to get rid of all that stuff. Again, those are issues that you can easily fix. Okay? What if it's worse? What if there's something really wrong? If you have an object that turns green, you usually did not find the textures, which means you did not put all your textures in the source images folder, and you didn't actually create a project folder that has source images and scenes. So you need to basically go back to square one and create a new project with all the folders that you need, the scenes and source images, and then take all your textures, put it in the source images, take your MB files and put it in the scenes file, and then reopen, set your project, reopen it, and open up your scene, and it should see the textures. Let's say you do all that and it's green. Okay, that can mean a couple things. It could be an error, or you've got corruption in your scene. So you'll have to, if there's corruption in your scene, there's nothing I can do to help you. But what you can do is you can go to an earlier save. Yeah, you'll lose some time. Hopefully you've been saving like you should be. But you'll basically lose a little time, but yet your scene will be good. A couple things you can do that I've noticed will help is that you can go to File, and then what you do is you save your scene that's corrupted, or you think that's corrupted. Go to New Scene, right? Okay, don't save. And then go to File, New Scene. Okay, right? So we'll get that. And then what you do is you go to File, Import. Okay, then you import your scene that's corrupted into a new scene. That's what I would do. So let's say you lose your ability to even just go jump back and forth by hitting the space bar, right? Or you got everything messed up so bad in here on your in like your preview windows, you can't figure out how to get your preview windows back. There's an easy way. You can go to File, New Scene, don't save, go to File, Import, and import that nasty scene into this scene, and it's going to force it to see a new palette, right? It's going to force it to see. So that's a little tip for you to help you if you do have little issues like that in Maya. Okay. A big issue is when Maya starts acting really, really squirrely, and so when you do that, then you have to close Maya, and so you have to literally close it, not just minimize like I just did, and go into your Documents folder, go into Maya, go into, I got lots of versions of Maya, go into 2020, and go and click on your Press folder. Okay, this is important. Okay, Press folder, that's the evildoer. Now the thing is, if you have hotkeys that you've already programmed yourself, and you've got like a whole slew of tools and plugins, this will destroy everything. Okay, since you're a student, I'm assuming that you probably haven't gotten that far with Maya, so you would go into your, click on the Press folder, and you would delete it. Now it's not going to destroy Maya, just that folder. Don't do anything else. Just that folder, right? You can see that would destroy all your custom hotkeys and marking menus and all that stuff, but that's okay. Sometimes this causes corruption if you do something wrong. So click on it and delete it. Click on delete, and what's going to happen is it's going to go right to your garbage can. And what you have to do is you have to open your garbage can and delete it there. You have to delete that garbage. So you have to delete the garbage, and then what you do is when that's all done, then open up Maya, and it'll open up fresh, like for the first time. Okay, so that's a great tip. All right, so let's go back to Maya, and let's look at some other things in here, just to make sure I haven't missed anything. There's tons of stuff in here, and we got to, but I can only give you so much, otherwise there's going to be a problem. I think I've shown you create Polygon tool. When you do that, you can create along the along the grid, and you can even use the grid snap to help you create stuff, and you can create very crazy whatever shape you want, and then hit enter. The problem with this is it is flipped over automatically, which I don't like, and we have to go in there, mesh display and reverse, then you're good. The problem with this is that, let's go to vertex. This is an n-gon right out of the, and there's some work you have to do. So basically you have to go in here and go into a multi-cut tool and just kind of select this and find your other cut, and then, whoops, oh come on, let's go back. There we go. There, come on, go back. Do it again. There we go. Hit enter, and you have to go and make sure you hit all of your points here that you created. Okay. Alright, enter. There we go. And I'm going to hit the Q key and make sure I go into vertex. There we go. So I missed one. See that vertex there? So I'd have to go in there and delete it. But it you want all quadrangles, so you have to do some work if you do an intricate using that tool. Okay, create polygons tool. It's a great tool though. It is. What's the next one here? Mesh tools. The other one that I think is really good. Insert. We know that. Make hole. A multi-cut. Yeah. Offset edge loop is good. Quadra we've done. Sculpting tools. That's a good one. So sculpting tools. Let's just do a sphere, and let's subdivide it a little bit more. So smooth. There we go. All right. So in here we can go and go into mesh tools, go into sculpting tools, and we've got all these really cool sculpting tools. Now I'm not going to go through every single one of them, obviously. If you just go into the sculpting tool and go into the option box, it will highlight, which is I like. It kind of grays it out, and you can see all the resolution, you know, the edge loops on there. And you've got your brush size. Let's bring that all the way down. We're working in centimeters. You got to remember that they're really small. There we go. And hold the B key and smooth it up and get it to the point you want it. Strength. Wow, it's strong right off the bat. So I would do something like 0.25. Okay. And again, you need a lot more polygons. You know, this isn't ZBrush, believe me. You can still do some interesting things here. And I've used it before. ZBrush costs a lot of money. Now Mudbox is student. I noticed that Autodesk is getting really finicky, and you've noticed that too. That it does not want to give their software out to just anybody, and they're starting to really question whether you're a student or not. And you guys, some of you guys have had problems even to get started, get the year program. So if you have a problem, just get the 30-day and then and then try to figure out how we can get. Because I would just say just use the your enrollment documentation that you paid for it, the class. So they're fun. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. And you can. Here's another one that you can use here real quick. Down to sculpting tools and smooth and relax. I use relax all the time. Okay, let's go into the option box here, and it just helps relax the the vertices around it. And it's great if you have really bad geometry and you want to smooth it out, and you can do that with the relax tool. It's just a wonderful tool. It's a little different than smoothing. It just relaxes the pinching, like say you got some pinching. It is not a smooth tool. A smooth tool does this. Let me show you. Go in here and go into the sculpting tool and the smooth tool. It will actually smooth it down to nothing. It'll average those vertices out, basically. So if you have a big bump or something, you want to get rid of it, smoothing is it. So you got a lot of tools at your disposal. It's pretty amazing, really. Maya gives you pretty much everything you could ever have, and then some. Hit the Q key to get out. Right. I know I'm going to go over more tools as we go along, but I think I hit everything that I think is important right now. If there's something else you want to do and you're not sure how to do it, just let me know. Because a lot of people are coming from Blender or 3ds Max, and it's something that I can't guarantee. Blender has some pretty amazing modeling tools. I will give you that. On Maya, and sometimes you may ask me and I may not understand the terminology, because the terminology is different from one package to another. Usually it's the same, but just give me a holler and let me know what you think, and if you need help with something, just let me know. jbyers3@jcc.edu. Alright, see you guys later.